All right, well, here we are. It's the final week of our Unmistakable series. And so we're looking at Numbers 25 to 27, which is not the end of the book of Numbers, but it is sort of it's the sort of setup for what happens through the book of Deuteronomy and the rest of the time in the wilderness. So that's where we're going to finish our time together through Unmistakable, and then next week we'll begin our Advent series, Joy in the Darkness. So we're gonna jump in. So Numbers 25 is an interesting little chapter. It's one of those. It feels like one of those V8 moments where it's like, why do we still not get it? So the people, they're staying in Shittim, and they begin to have relations with the women of Moab, and then there's this Baal worship, and verse 3 says Israel yoked itself to the Baal of Peor, and the Lord's anger was kindled against Israel. And so in the midst of everything that's gone on, in the midst of God's continual faithfulness, the people of Israel, and again, this is the new generation, they are still not quite getting everything necessary to be the people of God. And so now they've turned away from God and yoked themselves to the Baal of Peor. So God is quite, there's quite some graphic things going on in this particular chapter. So first of all, verse 4, the Lord tells Moses to take all the chiefs of the people and impale them in the sun before the Lord, in order that the fierce anger of the Lord may turn away. So that's just graphic in and of itself. But then Moses says to the judges of Israel, each of you shall kill any of your people who have yoked themselves to the Baal of Peor. So first of all, the chiefs, the leaders get punished. And then anybody that has worshipped Baal then gets punished as well. And so down at the end of verse 9, there's a number. It says, nevertheless, those that died by the plague were 24,000. So there's a plague that is referred to here. And I'm not really sure if that's like a disease kind of plague, or if that's a way of talking about the punishment that had to be carried out on the people. So either way, 24,000 people died. And then verses 6 through 8 talk about Phinehas, son of Eleazar, son of Aaron the priest, seeing a guy named Zimri, who brings a Midianite woman into his family, which is a euphemism for into his tent. So then he gets a spear and drives it through both of them. And that, at the end of verse 8, stops the plague among the people of Israel. So just the people have once again turned from God, and there is punishment that goes along with that. The Lord commends Phinehas and for his zeal, and he is granted a covenant of peace, and it shall be for his descendants after him, a covenant of perpetual priesthood, because he was zealous for his God and made atonement for the Israelites. So let me just back up to the questions. The Lord's angry with the Israelites who yoke themselves to the Baal of Peor, again, because they've turned their back on him, despite everything that's gone on. And so the punishment is to take out the chiefs, impale them, and then kill anyone who has yoked themselves to the Baal of Peor. And then the plague is the kind of a way of describing that punishment. Question 2 is Phinehas is granted a covenant of peace for his actions of being zealous for God, for impaling Zimri, and for his, for those actions. And the results are that there again in verse 8, the plague was stopped. The plague that was upon the people of Israel was stopped. All right. Let's see. And then I'll turn over to Numbers 31. The first 12 verses recount war against Midian. So, okay, if you again, verse 6, it was a Midianite woman that came in, and so the Lord says to Moses to avenge the Israelites on the Midianites. Afterward, you shall be gathered to your people. So Moses said to the people, arm some of your number for war, so that they may go against Midian to execute the Lord's vengeance on Midian. Send 1,000 from each tribe, so 12,000 people. And Phinehas is listed in there as the priest, along with the vessels of the sanctuary and the trumpets for sounding the alarm. And they did battle as the Lord had commanded and killed every male. They killed the kings of Midian, and they also killed Balaam, that guy, who tried to curse the people. And then they bring captives and spoil back, both people and animals, and to the camp at the plains of Moab by Jordan at Jericho. So the question is, how might war have been avoided if the Israelites had followed the instructions of the Lord in Numbers 25:16-18? So that says to harass the Midianites and defeat them, for they have harassed you by the trickery with which they deceived you in the affair of Peor, and in the affair of Cosbi, the daughter and leader of Midian, their sister. She was killed on the day of the plague that resulted from Peor. So if they had followed those instructions, if they had harassed the Midianites and defeated them, then chapter 31 verses 11-12 wouldn't have been necessary, because they would have already been done. And there are, if you keep reading through the Old Testament, you see places where God says, wipe these people completely out. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. And when they don't, then those people come back around. So if you keep reading into Judges, when you get to Gideon, he fights against the Midianites. So again, they come back up into the story. And so it's just one of those moments where it's like, if they had faithfully followed through on this and wiped them out, then they wouldn't have these issues later. Now, that's just, it's part of the story, and it's part of, sometimes they make excuses for it, and they're like, oh, but their cattle were all so, delicious looking, so we brought those home, and so because we wanted to offer them as sacrifices, and God's like, no, I didn't want that. I wanted you to, Anyway, they make all kinds of different reasons and excuses and rationales for not doing it, not making it go all the way. So war would have been avoided. Okay. So question 4 looks at both the beginning and the end of Numbers 26. So Numbers 26 is basically a long account of all the people who are counted. This is the second census that is being taken. And so if we jump to 52-53, the Lord spoke to Moses saying, to these the land shall be apportioned for inheritance according to the number of the names. So the Lord calls for a census of the Israelites so that the land can be divided among them. So it can be it can be apportioned out to them. So he says back in verse 2 to take a census of everyone from 20 years old and upward by their ancestral houses, everyone in Israel able to go to war. So essentially, everyone who is an adult in this new generation is to be counted, and then they're included because they count the adults because specifically adult males can go to war, and adult females can take care of things while the men are out fighting. So then the next 50 something verses is about numbering the people. And if you are so inclined, if anybody in your class is so inclined, they can go back to Numbers chapter 1 and do the accounting. You can look at the total from Numbers chapter 1, and then the total from oh, look at there. Oh, I can't see. It's blank. All right, and you're muted. You're muted, Gary. Gary, we can't hear you.
There it is. Okay.
Okay.
I found this on Enduring Word website. It is actually an Excel spreadsheet, if you will, that shows the before, the after, the number of change, and then the percent of change. And when you get down to the very bottom line, there were 1,820 people less, which is 0.3% change.
Right. Yep.
So, but I can send this out, but because I was going to send it to the class as well.
Okay.
But it just happened to pop up.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, between the generations, it's a small change in the percentage. And even in the numbers, it's a small change because it's 603,550 to 601,730. So yep. It's just and some of the interesting things is if you go in and you individually look at each of the clans and where their changes are, some of them go up and some of them go down. And again, if you've if you follow the narrative through, you can go, let's see. There was the whole, the Korahite incident back in 17, 18, somewhere, where the ground swallows them up because they rebelled against Moses. And so their numbers are a little bit lower because they had all that. And then even just from this, from chapter 25, with the, he's from Zimri, he's from the Simeonites. And so Simeon's numbers are down a little bit from, now they didn't take the whole hit, but,
Yeah, they're, according to this, they're down 64%, and Manasseh is up 63%.
Oh, there you go.
But that kind of depends on what the number was originally anyway, but yeah, both of them, one of them got a whole lot more, and one of them got a whole lot less.
Right. Yeah. Let's see, 59, 300 to 22, 20, yeah, 200. Yeah. So anyway, so it's interesting just to, from a purely statistical standpoint, to see the differences and the changes and which clans grew and which clans shrunk, and then trying to go back and look and see why that might have been. Um, and again, the Levites are left out of the census. They are counted, but they're not counted in that 600,000 number. So question 5 is, what's unique about the Levites in the census is that they're not included in that number because they're the priests, so they're not getting land. They're not getting a piece of property that's their inheritance. They are getting the priesthood, so they're getting the Lord is basically what it is, and then they will live off of the sacrifices and the things brought to the temple. There will be a portion that's given to them, and then they will also have land in each of the clans' designated areas in which to live, but they won't own any property. So because the priesthood is their inheritance. All right. So again, number 6 is what's different about this census from the census taken back in Numbers 1. The first difference is they're 2 different generations. So it's the generation that immediately came out of Egypt, but then and Numbers 26 is their children being counted there, and then you can see the ups and downs of the different clans, and then as a whole, you see there's very little aggregate change from one generation to the next. So like you said, it's like 0.3%. It's just not much. So now, and again, that's let's see, let me just double check. They want to take a census of everyone from 20 years old and upward. So so that's going to be less any people who are with them but aren't Israelites. It's not going to include children, so that number could easily be doubled or tripled with children and others outside of those Israelite clans that are on the precipice of going into the promised land. All right. Chapter 27. This is question 7. So there's a new situation that confronts Moses in 27, 1 through 11, which is brought to you by the daughters of Zelophehad. They are, Zelophehad was the son of Hafer, son of Gilead, son of Maker, son of Manasseh, son of Joseph. So he was a member of the Manassite clan. And he has 5 daughters, no sons. And the 5 daughters stand before Moses and Eleazar and the leaders and all of the congregation at the entrance of the tent of meeting. I think that's important. They are coming before the Lord and before the people, the leaders of the people, and making their case. And so obviously they're part of the second generation. And so they say that our father died in the wilderness because that's what was, that's what happened to that generation. He was not among the company of those who gathered themselves together against the Lord in the company of Korah, but died for his own sins, and he had no sons. So verse 4 says, why should the name of our father be taken away from his clan because he had no son? Give to us a possession among our father's brothers. So the way that it worked is that inheritance gets passed through the son, passed through the male heirs. And with Zelophehad having no male heirs, just these 5 daughters who are apparently unmarried, because if they were married, then they would have been incorporated with their husband's property, whichever clan that would have been. This hadn't been an issue before, and so it's brand new. And Moses's response to it is basically, well, let me pray about it. So he brings the case before God, before the Lord. And remember, they're right next, they're at the entrance of the tent of meeting. So that's where Moses meets with God. And the Lord speaks to Moses saying, the daughters of Zelophehad are right in what they are saying. You shall indeed let them possess an inheritance among their father's brothers and pass the inheritance of their father on to them. And then he goes on to say, so you shall say to the Israelites, if a man dies and has no son, then you shall pass his inheritance on to his daughter. If he has no daughter, so the implication there is that he has no children whatsoever, because the daughter is a secondary to the son. Then you shall give his inheritance to his brothers. If he has no brothers, then to his father's brothers. And if his father had no brothers, then you shall give his inheritance to the nearest kinsman of his clan, and he shall possess it. The goal is always to keep the property in the family line. That's always the goal. They inherit this land because of the clan that they're part of, and the goal is always to keep the property within the family line. So, when you look at the maps and everything in the back of your Bible, if you have maps in the back of your Bible, you'll see that it's defined by one of the 12 tribes, or not Joseph, but Manasseh and Ephraim. And the land is divided up according to those tribes. And the goal is always to keep those intact. So that's some of the, when we talk about like the year of Jubilee and the Sabbath year and land, one of the things is the restoration of land that had to be sold to pay debts. And so if a family or had to sell a piece of property in order to pay off their debts in the Sabbath year, it should, or in the year of Jubilee for sure, it should be reverted back to its original owners, so that it never falls out of that family line. And so what is happening here is that they're making a new layer of things that says, okay, if there are no sons to pass the inheritance to, then it can go to the daughters, and then beyond that, that's the new line. And before that, it just bypassed the females altogether. So these are intrepid young ladies to be standing up and going, because they're doing it for their father's name. They're not doing it for themselves directly. Obviously, they'll benefit from having that property, but they're doing it to keep their father's name alive, not erased from the record books. So,
I I had read about this in another Bible study I was doing, and found out that in Numbers 36, there was a caveat, said they could only keep the land if they married within their tribe. But it's like you said, the goal was to keep the tribe or the land within the family,
right.
the clan.
Yes.
Tribe.
Yep. Yes, there's another reference to them in 36. And so yeah, they were married into the clans of the descendants of Manasseh, son of Joseph, so that their inheritance remained in the tribe of their father's clan. So yeah, again, that enables Zelophehad's name to continue to be in the line. So yeah, that's exactly right. So again, I've talked a little bit around number 8 and the importance of the land being passed from one generation or relative to the next rather than being sold to someone outside the clan, because the goal is always to keep the land in that family and in that tribe and in that clan. Because what we begin to see happen is that as they enter into the land, and in Joshua and Judges, they will not completely eradicate the people who are currently in the land, and then those people stay in the land, and then when they begin to intermarry, then lines of ancestral heritage get muddied, and then there's potentiality for the property to go to someone who's not part of the Israelite clan in particular. And then if that land gets outside of the Israelite community, then how do they get it back? Because then at that point, then it doesn't fall under the Jubilee kind of deal or the restoration kind of deal. So,
could part of it be that that the Lord himself allotted the land to each tribe, so that that made it maybe more sacred, that they keep the land in the family because it was given directly by God?
Yeah, I think that's part of it too. I think that again, this is the land of promise. This has been from Genesis chapter 12. This has been since then. You'll have numerous descendants, and I will send them, to a land that flows with milk and honey and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, this has been what God has been working towards with the people for years now, lots of years, like hundreds of years. So, all right. Okay, what instructions does the Lord give Moses before appointing a new leader for the Israelites? This is question number 9. So the Lord says to Moses in verse 12, "Go up this mountain of the Abarim range and see the land that I have given to the Israelites. When you have seen it, you also shall be gathered to your people as your brother Aaron was, because you rebelled against my word in the wilderness of Zin, when the congregation quarreled with me." So he's given these instructions to go up and look. Go and look at the land. This is the place that you've been leading the people towards, and reminds him that this is all you get to do. You get to look, you don't get to go in. You're not going to lead the people in because you rebelled. At the waters of Meribah, or Meribath Kadesh. So he tells them to go up there. So these instructions are given right here in Numbers 27. He doesn't actually get there until Deuteronomy chapter 34, but he's got a long speech to give between now and then. So then Moses asks, what does Moses ask the Lord to provide in the next leader of the Israelites? This is verse 15, or starts in verse 15. Moses spoke to the Lord, saying, "Let the Lord, the God of the spirits of all flesh, appoint someone over the congregation who shall go out before them and come in before them, who shall lead them out and bring them in, so the congregation of the Lord may not be like sheep without a shepherd." So this is someone who will take up the mantle of shepherding the people of Israel in such a way that they will not be wandering anymore, that they will have their home, they will have their land, they will have their ability to settle in. And the idea of the going out and coming in and lead them out and bring them in, this is an idea of a bit of a priestly role, so that whoever it is will bring them before the Lord and then bring them out, and so that there's this back and forth between Joshua and the Lord, and Joshua becomes the go-between, just like Moses was. So the Lord provides Joshua, and And Joshua is a man in whom is the Spirit. And he says to take Joshua and lay your hand upon him, have him stand before Eleazar and all the congregation and commission him in their sight. You shall give him some of your authority so that all the congregation of the Israelites may obey. Let's see. So the word authority there in the NRSV, it may be different in other translations, but it's from a root word that means splendor or majesty or vigor, and closely related to power as well. So, and it's and so God is instructing Moses to place his hands on him, and in doing so, imparting that authority that God has given Moses onto Joshua. This will happen in 2 Kings. Elijah will give a blessing to Elisha, and so there's he passes the mantle to him that way. This is just this laying on of hands is it's a symbol and a sign of conferring authority, conferring power from one person to another, and in biblical context and in Christian context, it's from the Lord to them. So the immediate, I think of two immediate scenes in my own life. When I was commissioned as a provisional elder, and the bishop laid his hands on me and commissioned me for ministry, and then at my ordination, I think the bishops do this on purpose, but they, when they put their hands on, when Bishop Bledsoe put his hands on my head, I always felt like he pressed down so that we would feel the weight of the authority that was being vested in us. And I do that when I do confirmation. When I confirm kiddos in the churches that I've served, I always press just a little bit, and I tell them ahead of time I'm going to do that so that they don't recoil from it. But I press on them just a little bit, and because what they're doing and what they're agreeing to and being part of the church as a full member is a weighty matter. Anyway, so let's see. So then there's the last few verses of the chapter talk about how Joshua will stand before Eleazar the priest, who will inquire for him by the decision of the Urim before the Lord. At his word they shall go out, and at his word they shall come in, both he and all the Israelites with him, the whole congregation. So Moses did as the Lord commanded him. He took Joshua and had him stand before Eleazar the priest and the whole congregation. He laid his hands on him and commissioned him as the Lord had directed through Moses. So in this case, Moses does exactly what the Lord asked him to do, rather than sort of what the Lord asked him to do. So, all right. Cool. What questions might you have? Nothing.
Not much here.
Okay. And I was flipping back a page to chapter 26, and I saw my note out here to the side where in the listing of the clans of Manasseh and Ephraim, the daughters of Zelophehad are mentioned there as well. So that's even in prior to them coming before Moses. So it's verses 33 It's verse 33. It says now
What
Zelophehad.
chapter?
26. So
26.
in the census, it says now Zelophehad, son of Hepher, had no sons but daughters, and the names of the daughters of Zelophehad were Mahala, Noah, Hagla, Milcah, and Tirzah.
Okay.
So just to, it's interesting that they're listed there ahead of them coming before Moses to make sure that that their father's name isn't lost to history. So, sort of a little foreshadowing there. All righty. Cool. So if there's nothing else about this particular week, just want to make sure you got the Advent study guides. It was one PDF, but it has all the weeks in there. So however you want to parse that out for folks, and I will put it on the website as that single document, so that people get the whole thing, and we'll just send it out that way. Because I didn't create that, I can't pull it. I can't pull it apart. So
Okay.
So, I'm sure there's a way to do that, but I think that costs, you have to have the Adobe suite in order to do that, and I don't have the Adobe suite. So I'll just send it out as a single PDF with all the weeks on there.
So are you planning to have one of these sessions for each of the Advent weeks as well? Okay. Same day, same time?
Yep. We will keep on trucking. So, and then so we'll do the next 4 Wednesdays on that, on the Advent stuff, and then I'll be out the last Sunday of the year and the first Sunday of the year, so there won't be any sessions then, and I'll be back for Sunday the 9th will be my first Sunday back after Christmas, and we'll have, let's see, I'm trying to think, is that the 4th or the 5th? I think it's the 4th of January. Let me just double check real quick. The 5th of January will be our first session after the new year.
That's Book of Mark.
It'll be the Gospel of Mark, yeah. Mhm. So.
But that's going to be a sometimes on and sometimes off deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll have a clear outline of everything while during Advent, since I'm not putting together study guides and things like that. I'll have some extra time to line out what the year is going to look like and get y'all a breakdown of that. So.
Okay.
All right. Very good. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
You are very welcome.
Before you go, condolences and sympathies from our family to yours at your loss.
Well, thank you.
Been there and can certainly appreciate your situation. Except that my mom and dad were both in town rather than across the country.
Yeah. Well, at least I was there before she died, so that was good.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
All righty.
Well, everybody have a blessed week.
You too. Thanks so much, y'all.
All right.
Bye.
Adios. Bye.